Oh, how are you? Welcome to Chelsea. That's going to be this week's tour, huh? Pretty exciting. It's a nice little view of New Jersey. Not as exciting. I'm kidding. Phil's from New Jersey, so I bust his balls. We're actually at Chelsea Piers. Today we're going to do a tour of Chelsea, this neighborhood here on the west side of Manhattan. It's going to be a nice little walk. It's a quiet weekday today, so it should be good. We've got a couple of interviews lined up. Should be fun. But also, too, before we start, please subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. It's easy, just a quick click. It helps out a lot. Also, too, like the video. Just hit the little thumbs up button, you know. Helps out a lot as well for the analytics. I've read all about it in all the tech magazines. I'm super informed. Also, too, more importantly, check out the Patreon. If you get a chance, check out the Patreon. Super, super helpful, because that's what helps fund these things. I'm trying to grow these things, trying to make them more frequent, higher quality. So anyways, that's the whole spiel. But yeah, we're going to be doing a little tour of Chelsea today. It's going to be a nice walk. Phil, what do you think? Are you ready to do this?
Let's get going.
I'm feeling good about this. I feel good. I feel nice and relaxed. That's how you got to feel before these things. So, all right, let's go. So we're walking here on the Hudson River, which is actually named after Henry Hudson. I think I've talked about this in other videos. Henry Hudson, who discovered this area in 1609. He wasn't the first here. We've talked about that. I have a video on Henry Hudson, actually. Oh, wow. That's right, starting it off strong. Now, it was named after him. It's also here, very close. We're actually where Captain Sullenberger landed the plane. Yeah, that was a few years ago. It was right here in this area. Anyways, we're walking next to Chelsea Piers. This is Chelsea Piers. This is Piers 59 through 62, that in the early 1900s, this is a pretty cool story, was actually owned by the White Star Line. Some of you trivia buffs may recognize that as the company that operated the Titanic. And it was here at these piers that it was supposed to dock and arrive. Isn't that cool, Phil?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's a good fact. If you're ever on a date in this area, you point that out, people go nuts for that. Or so I hear. Okay, anyways, this is where we're supposed to arrive. Spoiler alert, it sank in the Atlantic Ocean. The unsinkable ship sank. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie where Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Jack, is brutally murdered by Rose at sea by getting pushed off a door that he probably could have fit on. But a little trivia about that boat, that ship ride, that ship journey, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, Ida and Isidore Strauss died on that, the two owners of the store Macy's. That's some trivia, huh? They died on that ship. In fact, in the movie, there's an old couple in bed as the water's rushing into their stateroom. That's them. And they cut their lines from the movie, which is where she refuses the spot on the lifeboat. Kind of interesting, huh? But this is Chelsea Piers. This used to be the piers for the White Star Line, but in the 1990s was actually converted into a sporting complex. So you can go here and you can hit golf balls. You can do all that stuff. It's pretty cool little area. You know, Pier 60 is like an event space. And you know, when I worked in legal America, when I worked in law, we had our office party there. I can still hear Darla talking about who possibly stole her Tupperware from the office fridge. Those were the memories I cherish. So we're walking here towards the West Side Highway. We're gonna cross the West Side Highway into Chelsea. Yeah, there's a little skate park there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't skate. I don't know. I've never appealed to me. You skate, Phil?
Used to a little bit.
It's kind of dangerous, if you ask me. Yeah. Spoken like a true dad now. Anyways, this is all Chelsea Piers, and we're going to cross over here. We're leaving this area and crossing into Chelsea, which is a very cool neighborhood. You guys are going to love this neighborhood, man. A lot of history, a lot of beautiful architecture. And you can see here in the distance, in front of me, you can see Hudson Yards there. That's the latest development. That's at the end of the High Line, pretty much. We'll talk about all that as we go. But also, too, if you guys want to know more about the Titanic and all that stuff, I actually did a video on the Titanic specifically. And I know, man, I got 2 plugs already. People are probably watching this, they're like, this is so annoying you do this. Look, I can't cover everything in every single video, so I have all these other videos and I have to refer to those other videos. So if you want to learn more about these things, go to those other videos. It's that simple. All right, we're going. So let's cross here. All right, well, we're leaving Chelsea Piers and we're walking now down 21st Street into Chelsea. Oh, by the way, Chelsea Piers is also, you can hold like ice hockey there. There's, a gym. But they also have the casting offices to like Law and Order. Law and Order used to shoot there, the old Law and Order. Yeah, they've shot some SVU there. The casting offices are there. So we should go try it, Phil. We should go try to get a part.
Yeah, let's get on it.
But yeah, we're walking down 21st, so we're walking into kind of Chelsea. Now, Chelsea is a neighborhood that it borders, it's kind of in between 14th and, look, different people are going to have different opinions of what is Chelsea, okay? There's never really set guidelines. Different organizations have set guidelines. The newspapers consider different guidelines. Generally speaking, it goes from like 14th Street between like Hudson and 7th or 8th up until like, 30th-ish. But the heart of it really is in the 20s, the low 20s, which is why we're walking in this area. It dates back, and it's called Chelsea. It's one of the oldest named neighborhoods in New York City because of a man named Thomas Clark. Now, Thomas Clark actually was a man who bought this land in 1750. And he named it Chelsea after, this is back when it was still a British colony. He named it Chelsea after a soldier's home, like a retirement home for soldiers in England. Anyways, his daughter then marries a man named Benjamin Moore. In 1779, he gives birth to his son, who is Clement Clark Moore. Now, Clement Clark Moore is the man who's kind of credited with developing this neighborhood. Yeah, you gotta use those magic fingers, Phil. Maybe you should get on this side so we can see on the other side here. Whoa, look at that, seamless. So Clement Clark Moore is generally credited with developing this area. What he did was in like the 1820s and 30s, he starts to sell off the land, partition it off and sell it as the city is expanding. And you're gonna see all those things. Very, very pretty neighborhood left over from that. But Clement Clark Moore, also a pretty famous guy. He's the guy who wrote the poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. Do you know that poem, Phil? Do you know the poem, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas?
Yeah.
It's that poem.
Oh, okay.
Clement Clark Moore wrote that. And he also developed this neighborhood. You got this church here. This is Church of the Guardian Angel. This was built in the 1930s, but the parish dates back to the late 1800s. Then over there in the distance, behind this construction, you have the Empire Diner, which was actually built in the 1940s. Pretty cool. You may recognize it from movies like Men in Black 2, movies like Home Alone 2. I didn't watch Men in Black 2. It seems like it was, you gotta be suspicious of those movies, right? It's like a complete cash grab. It's like, oh, okay, let's just make a sequel that no one asked for and try to make some money. I feel like everything's a sequel now, right? Am I just being cynical, Phil?
No, I mean, you're totally right, but I asked for that sequel. So
Did you really?
I definitely
Was it good?
No.
I didn't think so. I've boycotted all these sequels, every single one of them. The days of like, a sequel that's actually good or part of everything are over. Now it's just like, they give it like Dumb and Dumber 2 or whatever, that was the second one. Like, I knew that was gonna be terrible, even though Dumb and Dumber was one of my favorite movies. Check it out, this here is interesting. So this is the Highline Hotel. This actual building, though, used to be dormitories that were built in the late 1800s for a seminary that we're gonna walk by. But this also doubles as the Hudson University of the Law and Order. Any Law and Order fans know Hudson University? The building is this, actually. They use this as Hudson University. So we're gonna take a left here on 20th. Cool, so you can see over here to the right, you can start seeing some of these like little houses and things that were developed in this area. But to the left here, you're gonna see the General Theological Seminary. The General Theological Seminary was actually was begun in like the early 1800s. I think 1817 they started the actual development of this area as an actual seminary. And it's over here to the left. It belongs to the Episcopal Church. Episcopal Church, like Trinity Church is Episcopal. A lot of Protestant here in New York City. So over here to the right, you have some developments which are pretty interesting. That's Cushman Row. Cushman Row is a good example of some of these developments in the first half of the 1800s when this area was starting to be developed, right? So Cushman Row was developed by this guy named Cushman. Ah, look at that. Makes sense, right? So Cushman Row, right there to the right, nice Greek Revival houses there. And then here to the left, you can see the Gothic architecture of General Theological Seminary. Kind of cool, huh? It's an actual functioning seminary still. People go there to get trained to be pastors and preach. I was about to the visit from St. Nicholas at Clement Clark Moore. What's interesting, we take for granted too, is that Christmas was a thing that was kind of just invented. People don't realize that. Like in New York City, for example, you had people like Clement Clark Moore making that poem. You had people like Washington Irving first mentioning the idea of a St. Nicholas being some kind of patron saint of this holiday. You had people like Thomas Nast, who was the cartoonist who drew Santa Claus and drew that idea of the jolly fat guy and all this stuff. These things were just created. No one really believed in that before. And remember, New York City was such a diverse place. There were so many different ways of thinking of religion and all this stuff all mixed in. No one really had one set idea, and it took this like conscious push to just create a holiday. Which makes me think that I should just create my own holiday, right, Phil?
Yeah, go for it.
Should we call it like
What a Town's Day.
what a Town's Day, or Happy Touring Day. Happy Touring Day, Phil. For Touring Day, we should all just visit each other's Patreons or something. That could be the way we celebrate.
That's a great present.
Yeah, it'd be a good, nice present. So we're crossing 9th Avenue here. So we're also crossing 9th Avenue. Remember, these are all the streets from the grid. We're north of Houston, so the grid applies here. Avenues go up as you go from east to west. 1st Avenue all the way to 12th Avenue. Then you have the streets that go east to west, go from 1st all the way to like the 200s at the north end of the island. The grid was implemented in 1811. I've talked about it before. You all right there, Phil? You gonna trip? Here, let's go over here. Let's get out of the way of these people.
Yeah, there's construction everywhere.
This is a mess. There was a funny the quote about New York. It's like, New York's going to be a beautiful city if they ever finish it.
Oh, that's a fact.
That's a nice quote. So this here is really beautiful. This is St. Peter's Episcopal Church. This was actually built in the late 1830s. Pretty cool Gothic building. And then next to it is the Atlantic Theater Company, which was started in the 1980s by William H. Macy and David Mamet. Oh. Right there, the little church there. All right, so I wanted to come and show you this here real quick. This is kind of cool. Look at this plaque here. This is 337 West 20th Street. This was actually originally a foundry. It was built as a foundry in 1850, but this is actually where a man named Samuel Bath Thomas came, and he turned it into ovens for his English muffins. Thomas English muffins. You know those, Phil? Yeah. There you go. There's the Atlantic Theater Company. There's St. Peter's. Pretty cool buildings. And you can see a lot too of these. Let's walk in the street, dude. You can see a lot of these brownstones and stuff here. Brownstone's a very typical kind of building here in New York. It's a kind of sandstone that was mined in places like New Jersey and Connecticut. Became very popular, started becoming popular in like the early 1800s as trim for like doors and windows. But then as the 1800s developed, you get to the mid 1800s, the technology improves, they can carve it more easily. They start using it for the entire facade. Really pretty type of stone. You see it a lot here in New York City, very typical, like Trinity Church is built out of it, that kind of thing. So now we're gonna walk up 9th Ave. So Chelsea has changed a lot over time. I think as a way to, find out more, why don't I go talk to a friend of mine who lives in the housing development that's right up here on the 20s. Let's go check it out. So I'm here with Barbara Maier Gustern, who is a longtime resident of Chelsea, an artist. So how long have you been in the neighborhood?
Since 1974, in this apartment. Pretty rough when we moved here, 8th Avenue. But it used to be, you'd see fights in there all the time. Yeah.
You were never getting into fights, are you?
Me, every chance I got. No, no.
What's your advice for someone who's trying to make it in New York as a singer or as a performer?
Perseverance. Don't fall into the trap of imitation. Come and see me.
You got to plug the stuff. You got to plug the stuff, Barbara. That's exactly what this is for. Where are you from originally?
Boonville, Indiana.
Boonville, Indiana.
Uh-huh.
That's like the New York City of Indiana, right?
Not quite. This cash register behind me was in my grandfather's hardware store.
In Boonville, Indiana?
Yeah, and then it became my dad's store.
Wow.
And I worked in the hardware store.
So what made you decide to want to pursue music and acting?
Maybe when I was 6 or 7, I would stand on a chair and make my aunts sit, and I would give them a concert.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
What was your go-to song to sing for them?
I don't remember, but it was probably during the World War II. So.
Like go get 'em, boys. Go knock down the fascists or whatever. I don't know if that's a song. What would you say to someone who's never been to Chelsea?
We have the most beautiful brownstones. The doors of those brownstones. I know when I'm traveling, I always look at the doors. I love the doors.
I think there's some symbolism.
Not the group, just the doors.
Make it clear, no Jim Morrison fan here. So you've taught lots of people from Broadway. You've taught different singers and everything.
Debbie Harry.
Debbie Harry, Blondie. All right, let me try something. Take me home, country roads, to the place.
Stop.
Okay, that's not good.
Feel like you get some air in the hinge of your jaw.
Sure, a lot of air up here.
Okay. We know it's back there, but how about putting some here?
Yeah. Okay. And what's the craziest thing you've ever seen in New York?
I was at a party in the Village, and it went forever, and we came out at like daybreak, and there was this man. He had on a skirt and a wig, and he was singing "Follow the Yellow Brick Road." At the time, that was like, oh, look at that. Now I don't think I even notice it.
Right, I was about to say, I think I saw him earlier today. I think he was out there on the way here.
He's one of my students, probably.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure he learned to sing from you. What would be the play you recommend for someone who doesn't go to too many Broadway shows? What would be the first play you recommend? Or musical?
I might say Most Happy Fella.
It's a play about my life. Play about my life while I'm talking to Barbara. Happy fella. Huh? That's pretty good. Okay, well, thank you so much for meeting with us today, Barbara. It was really great to meet with you, and you have a very lovely home.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess I'll get back out there. Well, that was pretty sick, wasn't it? All right, let's keep moving. Come on, let's cross, Phil. Off in the distance, you see Hudson Yards there. This recent development, they just built it a couple years ago. It's a little too fancy for my taste. They tried to make it like, they wanted to make it like some kind of Rockefeller Center type thing, but it feels like a gated community to me. It's a lot of very expensive places and apartments and stuff. Anyways, we're gonna keep walking here. And here on the corner, you have Le Grand. I think that's how it's pronounced. But it's a little building there. It's really pretty old. It's been there since 1831, one of the oldest buildings in Chelsea. This one right here, Phil, see it? Some cool brownstones down this way. One of the big developments in Chelsea's history was the Hudson River Railway that was built in the mid-1800s that went up the west side. It made a lot of the land in Chelsea around that around the railway industrial. We didn't go to Chelsea markets on this one because I covered it in a past video. I covered it in the meatpacking video. There you go, baby, come on. But it's there. It used to be the factory for the Nabisco cookie company. And today it's a big, it's a big like overpriced market where, you can go get food and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, Google owns it. They bought it for like $2.5 billion like a couple years ago. And that used to be a Nabisco factory. The High Line is actually a result of that railway as well. So the High Line, we also covered in that video, so you can check that out as well. But the High Line was actually elevated in the early 1900s, 1930s, because too many people were getting hit by the railroad as it was running on the street. So they elevated it in the 1930s, and then they stopped using it in 1980. And it just sat unused. And one of the things they did was to try to push it to become a park. It was opened in 2009 as a park. And, it's really nice now, and all the land around it's getting developed very quickly. Speaking of developments, this is pretty cool. Look at this. See this giant apartment complex, Phil? This was built in 1929. It's called London Terrace because there's actually an area called London Terrace here that was designed by a man named Alexander Jackson Davis, who he actually designed the Customs House that's now Federal Hall National Monument. But this was all to replace it in 1929. At the time, it was one of the biggest apartment buildings in the entire world. Pretty cool thing. And then you have over here to the left another development that I'll show you here in a second. But let's cross here. But let's cross over here to the right. We're just going to head over 23rd. Also, too, there's a lot of artists in this neighborhood. There's theaters here and a lot of art galleries. It's another thing, too, that I should mention. Chelsea's famous for its art galleries. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And in fact, they say that, one of the little hacks in New York is that you can go on, what you used to be able to do is on Thursdays, they would have their exhibitions and you could go get free food. Just walk in, pretend like you're going to buy, art that costs thousands of dollars, and you get some free, cold cuts. So now we're walking along 23rd. Up here to the north, you have the Chelsea Elliott houses. Further down, it was a housing project that was built in the mid-1900s when there was a huge housing project boom in New York City, the New York City Housing Authority. The Chelsea Elliott house is actually where Whoopi Goldberg grew up. But you can see some of the buildings there off in the north. And then over here to the left, you have this theater belongs to SVA, School of Visual Arts. School of Visual Arts is it's a school that covers like video production, all those types of things. Phil could probably teach a class there. But they cover all those I actually did a short film for one of them where I got shot in the woods. That's what you do there. This is a kind of cool little facade there. These people kind of decorate the front of their building. You see it, Phil? So all this neighborhood used to be very, it still is pretty artistic, a lot of arts, but also a big LGBTQ community. So in the 1960s, around the time of Stonewall, which happened in 1969, which I covered in my Greenwich Village video. I'm sorry, I'm not doing this on purpose. There's a lot of crossover, okay? But after that, around that time, the neighborhood of Greenwich Village was getting more expensive. So a lot of the gay community there started moving to places like Chelsea, and also to places like Soho is where the artists who got pushed out went, but the gay community came to Chelsea. So it's a really big LGBTQ community here in Chelsea for that reason. Another thing too, there's some pretty good food places here in Chelsea as well. In fact, there's a really good pizza place just to the north of us that I really like. It's on 30th, 31st. I know it's pushing the limits, but I think it's Chelsea. What difference does it make anyway? And if you have any real issues with anything I'm saying, I have a website that you can go to. It's called criticizetom.com. Go check it out. Feel free. Let's go check out that pizzeria. It's a pizzeria called Pizzeria Suprema. It's open since the 1960s, actually, and it used to only serve cheese pizza because that was their famous slice up until the 1980s. Luckily, I'm friends with the owner. Yeah, that's right. So let's go check it out.
Yeah.
And how long have you been running the restaurant?
I've been running it since 2007.
And your father started it, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And your grandfather emigrated from Italy, correct?
That is correct. Right.
What part of Italy?
We're from Sicily, but my father learned from his Neapolitan brother-in-law, at least some of it, and then we changed it. And I think we perfected it, quite honestly.
All right. No short of modesty there. I like it. I like it.
I believe in my product, so.
That's fair. And you're famous for your plain slice, correct?
That's correct. That's what we're famous for. Because that's the base. That's where it all starts, on the plain cheese pizza. So if your base is wrong, if your base is off, if it's imbalanced, then everything else is going to be off as well.
That's some pretty good life lesson right there, isn't it?
That is. I've never thought about that, Tom.
If your base is off, the rest is going to be totally off. So what's your favorite part of Chelsea as a neighborhood?
It's right here. I mean, this is home to me.
Nice plug. That is a good plug. Good businessman right here.
But I'm not being a good businessman. This is what I know. Yeah. This is what I've known since I'm a child. So I mean, this is home to me. Okay. What we're standing on is this is holy ground for me.
What do you like to do aside from make pizza?
I enjoy weightlifting, and I do.
I like to do some weightlifting too. If you can't tell.
Yeah, you're all beefed up. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if you noticed. No big deal. I got a jacket on or whatever.
Yeah, that's why you keep it on. You don't want to intimidate me, right?
So when did you guys decide to stop focusing on just plain slice?
My father just did plain pizza from '64 all the way till 1988. We as New Yorkers, we're proud of our plain slice. Give me a slice. Hey, give me a slice. But you get out of towners where pizza's bad. They have to disguise it with toppings. And in fact, my dad would say, we don't need to disguise our pizza with toppings. Our pizza's good. And I'd say, but that's not what the people want. And he'd say something like, well, they got to learn. And I'd say, well, I'm out of school,
What would you do if you saw one of your kids eating Domino's pizza?
You want to know something? My kids love Domino's. They recently announced to me.
Oh no!
And I turn around. They actually like the Olive Garden, but they're little yet. They're still young and they don't.
Undeveloped palates.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't really understand.
They don't know any better.
They don't forgive them. They do not know what they do. But
so we're sitting here with a slice of the pizza that's very famous, right? A lot of accolades.
A lot of accolades. Yeah. Most recently, we received I think it was 7th or 8th best slice in the world. Yeah, and we've gotten from Time Out New York. We were rated #1 one year, #2 the next. Anthony Bourdain used to come here. He was a regular here. He loved our pizza.
Congratulations on all your success. Thank you for having us here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Well, here's the moment of truth. I guess I'm gonna have to try it.
Let the record reflect that he's on the ground and he's not. He loved it so much. It's not because it was bad.
Well, that was sick. Let's keep moving. So we were talking about SVA, which is back there, some of the famous alumni there. Jared Leto, the actor, he was SVA guy, as was Fred Armisen. So we're going to cross 8th Avenue here in a second. But up 8th Avenue, if you go north, you would get to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology. It was opened in the mid-1900s as like a way to supplement the garment district, which is located just north of here. Oh, we're gonna make this light, Phil. You better believe it. 10 seconds, let's go. 7, 6, 5. Anyways, it was opened in the mid-1900s. They have all kinds of majors like fashion, business. You can even toy design as a major. But some of the famous alumni there, Michael Kors and Calvin Klein, Carolina Herrera. It's a good accent, right, Phil? Thank you so much. Cool. Come on over here, Phil. So how you been, Phil?
I've been great.
What's new with you?
Well, nothing much. Just started a new podcast that you can look up everywhere on Apple, Spotify.
You son of a gun.
It's called Learning Things with Kyle and Phil.
All right, that's enough, you son of a gun. You're a plugging machine. I love it. What a businessman.
It's not one stuff.
All right, all right. Well, we're walking on 23rd Street here, and we're going to go to now one of the more iconic spots in the entire neighborhood. Really, there isn't a spot that kind of screams the neighborhood of Chelsea like this building that we're going to pass by here on the right. But a little thing to just kind of talk about in Chelsea generally is that it started out as like a farmland. It was one big farm, really. And as the city started expanding, the descendants started seeing opportunity. They partitioned it off. This still happens all over the world as cities expand out. It's hard to believe, though, that something that pretty much is in the center of the city right now used to be, farmland up until, like 175 years ago. Not a long time. But this is what I wanted to show you, baby. This is it. This is the Chelsea Hotel. This is probably the most iconic building in this neighborhood. So anyways, the Chelsea Hotel was built here in 1884. Really pretty building, obviously. But it was a co-op apartment building when it was first built. Remember, at this time in 1884, co-op apartments and apartments generally for the wealthy and for the well-to-do weren't really a thing. Remember, they still had their mansions and stuff in the mid-1800s. The Dakota was built around this time as well, back up near Central Park. Anyways, this was built as a co-op apartment building. Then in the early 1900s, it's failing. And so it turns into a hotel. Then it's continuing to fail. Around World War II, it's not doing very well, so it's picked up by a new family. And then their son, his name is Stanley Bard, takes over as like the manager of everything. And he kind of opens its doors to artists specifically and makes deals with some of them where they paid their rent in paintings and stuff. So it was a big magnet for artists throughout the mid-1900s and 1960s and 70s. I mean, you name them. If they passed through New York, they were here. Madonna lived here. Patti Smith, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan wrote the song Sarah here. If you guys know that song, it's one that's like, Sarah, Sarah, easy to look at but hard to define. Was that pretty good, Phil? That's messed up, dude. I thought you were going to help me out on that one. Anyways, Leonard Cohen had a little thing with Janis Joplin here. He wrote about it in his song Chelsea Hotel No. 2. Let's see, Arthur Clarke wrote the book 2001 Space Odyssey. William S. Burroughs wrote something here. Thomas Wolfe wrote You Can Never Go Home Again here. Dylan Thomas, the poet, died here in 1953. He went to the White Horse Tavern and drank 18 shots of what they say was whiskey or scotch, something. 18 shots, either way, it's not a good idea. He fell into a coma here, and then he died a couple days later. So tons and tons of stories here. Sid Vicious, the Sex Pistols, murdered Nancy Sponge and his girlfriend here in a drug blackout. A little dark, sorry. But it's reality, baby. And that's what we deal in the tour guide biz. But yeah, Chelsea Hotel. Pretty cool, huh, Phil?
Yeah, pretty awesome.
But yeah, anyways, that's kind of a good spot to end the tour. A little recap. We learned a lot here, but also too, if you liked it, please subscribe. That helps a ton. Just a little click, and I promise you all the videos are good. That's the only thing I promise you. And two, like the video, that'd be a big help. But also, please check out my Patreon. I have a link down there and all that stuff, but that's what helps fund these videos. It's gonna help me grow this thing, make it, improve them, more frequent, all that stuff. That's really where you can really help out. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you. What do you think, Phil? Do you think we covered everything?
I think so.
Yeah? All right. Well, I feel pretty good about that one. Nice and to the point. Chelsea's a great neighborhood. And, I don't know. I guess I'll call it here. All right. Well, that's the end of the tour. See you guys later. Sick.